Gurave Gaurachandraya Dharikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaibhacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. My Dandavat Pranam devotees. So this is a very, very short video. I'm just replying to a follow-up question that was from the last video I did, which dealt with the need to understand Tattva Siddhanta. And I quoted from the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, chapter 2, verse 117, about the importance of studying the writings of our previous acharyas, and we went into some detail of the purport of our Srila Prabhupada. Part of that discussion dealt with sambhanda gyan. Dandavat sadhana siddha Prabhu. Dealt with sambhanda gyan. So one of the devotees from the group whom that original video was intended for wrote back and asked the question, how is it possible to understand our sambandha or relationship with Krishna prior to becoming perfect or becoming self-realized? So I'm explaining just briefly here that we should understand that just as karma, our material karma, is very, very exacting. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam it mentions Karmana Daivana Natrena Jantu Dehopapatye Stri Uttarpaveshta Pungsam Reta Kanashaya. Exactly what womb you will enter to get a body which is the perfect outcome of your previous life's karma and your aspirations. A body is formed in a particular womb exactly in accordance with that. That's how exacting karma is. At the same time, what is this verse? Praktanak aduni chasti yasad bhakti vasana. We have previous samskars or impressions, let's say bhakti karma for lack of a better word. We have previous impressions and samskars in bhakti, and in each iteration that we pick up the practice of bhakti in another life, we get adunik or current samskars. Those previous samskars and current samskars build a portfolio for us from one life to another. So it is not that we come into life with no samskars whatsoever in bhakti, right? If you are fortunate enough to be born in a devotee family, or you're fortunate enough to at any point in your life pick up the practice of bhakti in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just as karma is the basis of what happens in your life materially, so similarly, your spiritual connection with the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is neither accidental nor random, but rather it is the outcome of bhakti samskars. Now, that being said, the practices which are part of the profile of those who follow in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the angas of bhakti given by Rupa Goswami, beginning with Guru Padasraya, Tashmat Krishna Dikshari Shikshanam Vishrambena Guru Seva, etc. So all of these things, these practices, they are called Abhideya, as I mentioned in the last video. And Abhideya means Abhida. Abhida means to define something, like the Sanskrit dictionary is called a Abhidan. It means a book of definitions. So Abhideya defines what our sambandha is. So there's sambandha, abhideya, and prayojan. The abhideya is defining, based on those previous samskars, what our sambandha is. Now, in order to get some coherence or resonance with that, then we have a number of things that have to be accomplished. One is obviously we have to be saranagati. Because if we're not in a position of saranagati, which is anukuyasa sankalpa pratikuyasa vivajanam, right? Rakshashiti vishwas gopravevaranam tata atmanachepa karpanya Sad anga, saranagati. If we don't have those 6 elements, then it is very difficult to look past the perceptions of our material identity. That means our false egoism. Asmita means the false identity awarded to us by Maya under avidya or ignorance. You can't look past those things if you've not put yourself in a position to surrender to the idea of Nityasita Krishna Prema. No, excuse me. Jivarasopoye Krishnera Nitya Das. If you've not put yourself in a position to surrender to the idea that I'm Krishna Das, beginning with that foundation, it is very difficult to look past the false egoism and the false identity awarded by the material energy. So therefore it becomes very difficult to understand, well, how am I related to Krishna in a specific way? Even after the devotee takes the Diksha. Diksha means Devya Gyanam Hyanta Shimanti Mantre Bhagavat Sarup Gyanam Tena Bhagavat Sambhanda Visesh Gyanangscha. So the word Visesh Gyan means a specific understanding of how I'm related to a particular form of Krishna. Krishna has unlimited avatars. But there's one of those particular forms of Krishna which is called my Ishtadev, or my worshipable objective. If it's Ramachandra, if it's Lord Narayan, if it's Narasimhadev, etc. But of course, in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that worshipable Ishtadev is Sri Vrindanandan Krishna. Understand? So, having established that as my worshipable objective, what is my specific mood of worship and service? At the time of receiving Diksha, in a seed form, that identity is given. Now remember, I've told that the practice defines what you receive the Diksha. So now look at the practice very closely. This is the difference between ritualistic practice and conscious practice. Conscious practice means I need to understand and resonate with what it is I'm doing. So for instance, one of the first things we do every morning is we sing Guru Ashtakam. In the process of following bhakti, we have to do anugatya. Anugatya means you have to follow someone who has realization of the goal for which we aspire. So we obviously consider that Guru is that person. So we're doing Guru Anugatya. So I'm following my Guru, and if you follow the line of conception that runs through Guru Ashtakam, it's a progressive unfoldment from accepting Sadhu Sangha and Diksha in the first verse to accepting entrance into the Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, into the service of Radha Krishna Yugal in the third verse. In the fourth verse, it explains the nature of the ruchi. Ruchi aswada means the taste inherent in serving Krishna, who has 4 types of madhuri. Chatuvidashi Bhagavat Prasad. What kind of prasad are we realizing? Oh, Krishna's Venu Madhuri, Rupa Madhuri, Prem Parikar Madhuri, and Leela Madhuri. So this is the meaning of this verse. Right? Then in the 5th verse, it explains, Shri Radhikaya Madhavyora Pada Madhyuja Leela Gunupananam Pratikshana. So by saying the word Pratikshana, it's indicative of a stage of development in bhakti called Asakti. Asakti is that stage in which there's the moment-to-moment intense, unquenchable thirst for achieving the object of your worship. It is called the stage of Ashakti. So in this verse, it's not only pointing out that stage of Ashakti, but it's also pointing out that my Guru Dev has the mood for intense desire for the service of Shishi Radha Madhav. So then you have to understand, well, what does it mean, Shishi Radha Madhav? Right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote one bhajan, and we sing this before we do our Srimad Bhagavatam class, because our Srila Prabhupada sang it. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. So here it's saying, may Shrimati Radhika be victorious over Madhava. Now, when Krishna is called Madhav, which means the husband of the goddess of fortune, unless we understand that the position of Radhika at that time makes her superior than all the goddesses of fortune, meaning she's become the most fortunate. Why? Because she enters into a special mood called Swadhina Bhatrika Naika. It means that lover who brings her beloved under her control. Radhika takes this mood, Swadina Bhatrika Naika, then she is addressed at that time as the most fortunate. And therefore at that time, she is more fortunate than all Lakshmis, all expansions of Shakti Tattva, because she alone, due to her mother Nakya Mahabhav, the supremacy of her praying, brings Krishna completely under control, and he becomes Anuku Dhira Lalit Nayak, means who's completely submissive to his beloved Shrimati Radharani. So this is the meaning of Shri Radhikaya Madhavyor Apara, the unprecedented transcendental love of Radha and Madhav. In other words, Radha and Krishna, when they have these particular moods. Swadina Bhatrika Nayika and the Anukul Dhira Lalit Nayak. So obviously this will take some study of Sri Ujjwala Muni and other Goswami Granthas to understand these terms, but I'm just giving the basis here. So then in the 6th verse, it explains Ni kunja yuno ratti keli siddhai yad ali bir yuktir apekshaniya. My Gurudev, whom I'm doing anugati to, I'm following this person towards my perfection, they are Ni kunja yuno ratti keli siddha. They have siddha, their perfection is in Ni kunja seva. So, in the writings of our Goswami Varga, it's written that there are different sections of the meeting place of Radha and Krishna. The general meeting place is called a kunj. Within that kunj, there's something called nikunj. In that nikunj, the speciality of that place is that the service which is available there is only for those who have the mood called Palyadasi Bhava Manjari Bhav. So now, there's no need to jump into a imaginary status, right? We are simply understanding by the practice and by the conscious attention to the practice what's being defined as my sambhanda. It's not indicative of having realized that. It's simply defining what is called the seva abhista, or the aspirational desire of the path that you've entered into. Now, if you discover this is not the path, you understand? Perhaps I have a desire to serve Sri Ramchandra Ji. Then you would take up anugatya under those who are Ram Bhaktas who can teach the save of Sri Ram. If you want to serve Sri Narayana Vaikunta in the Sri Sampradaya, then they will teach you how to do the mode of worship and everything of Sri Sampradaya for the worship of Sri Lakshmi Narayan. You understand? So, but the specific modality of worship here is being described in the very first thing we do every day. So you can now understand, at least intellectually, if not yet by any internal realization, this is the line of conception that I'm following the person I'm following. Now, another thing that clouds this issue is whether or not that 6th verse of Guru Ashtakam is describing my Guru. That's a conversation to be held between Guru and disciple. Because at the time of giving Diksha, one part of giving Diksha is giving Dhyan, the mantra Dhyan, the mantra Hasya, the mystery and the Dhyan of the mantras that you're giving to a disciple. If in the course of giving that mantra to the disciple, no Dhyan is given, no Guru Dhyan, no mantra Dhyan is given, then how will the disciple chant the mantra with an understanding of the unfoldment of what the mantras are meant to do, which is to give them a Vishe Sambandha Gyan? If you've not given them the elements within the mantras that you give, you haven't explained those things, how will the disciple decipher them? So the idea of simply receiving the paper with the mantras on them, and then you go back and recite them without shiksha in the mantras, and the Tattva Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami points out, Diksha Mantra Upadashrinam, Bhagavat Sastra Artha Upadashrinam. Two things should be there. One is Upadesh, or instruction in the mantra that you receive. And then instructions in the meanings of Srimad Bhagavatam. So both things have to be there. You can't only teach the teachings of the philosophy in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our Mool Granth, our root sastra, but you have to teach the elements of the mantra you gave, which is essential to the practice. Of course, now it's become a little bit fashionable not to really give the Diksha mantras. And maybe perhaps this is because it's seen that the Diksha mantras only have efficacy for service in terms of when a person takes the Diksha mantras and receives the status of being a Brahmin, they can now do service on the altar. But that's not the essential feature of Diksha. The essential feature of Diksha is explained by Jiva Goswami to give this Visay Sambhanda Gyan. In fact, the qualification to do the service on the altar is not based simply on a sanskar or simply on a ceremonial status of having become a Brahmin. It's based now on the Sambhanda Gyan received at Diksha, that now the service to the deities is related to your eternal service that you aspire to do. So it's not simply a, for lack of a better word, external institutional maintenance of the temple in the form of deity seva. It's an actual practice of the aspirational desire you have to serve Radha Krishna now in the Archa Vigraha form, but your inner aspiration is to serve them eternally in their original Swarup, in Braj. So when you look at the 5 things that Rupa Goswami wrote that are the most important in practicing bhajan, try to understand these things clearly. Nam Kirtan. Why? Because Nam, Punasuro Nityamukto Binatam Namnyo, Nama Namnyo. This name is Radha and Krishna in the Shabda Vigraha, means the form of sound. Just like the Archa Vigraha is there in our temple, right? So the Shabda Vigraha is Sri Harinam, right? The Archa Vigraha is more for your archan. That's why it's called Archa Vigraha. It means to engage your senses actively in a mode of service and actively in a sensibility that everything is not about me, but it is about God. So if you live in a house and you have deities in your house, you should consider the house is a temple that belongs to the deities. I am a sevak who lives here and I'm doing their service. Cooking, cleaning, everything around that building is for the service of Thakurji, just like it would be a temple. Right? So this trains our external body in the attitude of serving Krishna. Inwardly, in our meditation, the Archa Vigraha in sound becomes the object of our service. So when we're chanting Hare Krishna, internally we're also serving Shri Shri Radha Krishna, who've now appeared in Shabda Brahman or the Shabda Avatar. You understand? Now, if we are following this process and Guru has not given this information, we cannot ascertain if this 6th verse of Guru Ashtakam is applicable to my Guru Dev. One or two things can happen. We can approach Guru Dev to get clarity on this. We may take Siksha from someone who has that clarity, and that Siksha Guru will be the prominent illuminating factor in my life. You understand? It does not dismiss or degrade the Diksha Guru. It actually is seen that now my Diksha Guru has appeared in this person to give Siksha. For whatever reason that I have not received from my Diksha Guru, but this person has appeared to give Siksha of my bhajan practice, that person may become the prominent illuminating factor in my life. Again, it's not dismissive of Diksha Guru. It is simply the manifestation of Diksha Guru in the form of Siksha. Because Rupa Goswami mentions, Tashmat Guru Padasraya, Tashmat Krishna Dikshadi Shikshanam. Siksha is indispensable. You cannot just receive Diksha without the Siksha. I also quoted the verse from Tattva Sandarbha. So one option is to go to Shiksha Guru now and get the unfoldment and illumination of these things. The other was to go to Guru Dev and ask for Siksha in these things. Right? But one of those two things has to be done to make the practice consistent with what it is you're doing. In other words, to make the internal desire, aspiration, and resonance synthesize with the actual practice. So now in this 6th verse, if my guru is not this category, right? That's one thing. Or they have not realized themselves in this category, or herself in this category. Then we may follow the line of conception. The line of conception coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is predominantly Paliyadasi Bhav. Mahaprabhu told, he's come to give Chari Bhakti Ras. So all four rasas are given. Santa Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, all are given, the other four rasas. But primarily, Anapita Chirim Chirat Karanumati Nakalo Sumutpaitam Unata Ujal Rasa So Bhakti Sriyam. He came to give the beauty of service to Unata Ujjwala Rasa of Srimati Radharani. So this is all written in Chaitanya Charitamrita very clearly. So if I've established that my Gurudev fits this category of the 6th verse, and I'm doing Anugatya, or I'm following that Guru, it is giving information to me, this is my aspired goal. Just as if I had a mentor, and my mentor was a lawyer. That lawyer, he got me enrolled in law school. And that lawyer, on a continual basis, was guiding me in my progressive stages through law school. Well, it can be concluded that I'm going to be a lawyer, not an engineer, not a doctor, not a mechanic. You understand? So the very nature of the activity is giving definition to my aspirational desire. So we have to synthesize those things. And that means sometimes we have to sit down and think about these things clearly. Sometimes we are moving so much mechanically through the process of bhakti that we don't stop to think about these things, or based on previous experience, we've thought that I shouldn't think about these things. Everything will just automatically happen. I don't know how it works, but I'll just keep chanting and hearing, and when I die, it'll all manifest. Even though none of the writings of our acharyas explain it that way. Not one. Our Srila Prabhupada, not any acharya has explained that it's just a process of sort of an automatic thing that happens at the end of life, right? And dying becomes your qualification to get self-realization. That's not what happens. There's a gradual unfoldment that's explained by all of our acharyas, from Adoshrada, Tada Sadhusanga, Bhajana Kriya, Anatana Vritti, Nishta, Ruchi, Ashakti, and Bhav. And there are certain ingredients in each of those stages. This is the process and how it unfolds. We also have to understand that. We can't think everything is just, well, I'll bide my time while chanting 16 rounds, following 4 regulative principles, and when I die, all of this will automatically take place. That's not written anywhere. Right? So now again, if I have not ascertained that the position of my Gurudev is like this, or that my Gurudev's own aspirational desire is like this, which would then come under Rupa Goswami's definition, Swajatya Snigde Ashe. You understand? That person has the same desire that I do for their perfection and is affectionate to me, but also Mahatra has some realization that's superior to mine. Right? This is the ideal of the kind of sadhu sangha we want to have. Swajatya Snigde Ashe Mahatra Sadhu Sangha. You understand? Now, reciting the Tulsi Stavan Stuti. Again, every day we're singing the prayers to Tulsi Devi or Vrinda Devi. We should meditate, who is Tulsi? In Braj, Tulsi is called Vrinda Devi. Vrinda Devi is the orchestrator of the conjugal pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And we're asking her, Ye tumara sadhana loy, taravancha puna hoy, kripa kori korotari, Vrinda Varavasi. First I've asked, being surrendered to you, Vrinda Devi, please make me a resident of Vrindavan. Moraye Avilas. I have another Avilas. Moraye Avilas, Vilas Kunji Diovash. Allow me to witness the Kunja Vilas of the divine couple. So now the category under which you can witness this Kunja Vilas excludes Vatsalya Rasa. It excludes Priya Sakya Rasa. Even to witness it directly would exclude Priya Nama Sakya Rasa. You understand? So the only available witness to the Nikunja Vilas is Paryadasi Bhav of Radhika Manjari Bhav. Even the Sakis like Lalita, Vishaka, Chitra, Chammakalata, Tunga Vidya, Ranga Devi, Sudevi, etc. They don't witness directly the Nikunja Vilas of Radha and Krishna. Understand? So by studying, you'll understand why all these things are like they are. So now, after that, we're saying, to make the point more clear, E nivedena dhara saki anugata koro. Therefore, because the Sakis like Lalita, Vishaka, etc., they do not witness the pastimes in the Nikunj that I had just mentioned in the previous verse. May I be there anugatya, may I do anugatya to them. I don't want to be a Saki, like Lalita, Vishaka, Chitra, Chambakalata, etc. Of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained, really, in Madhurya Rasa, only one avenue of service is available to the Bada Jiva. That is Palyadasi Bhav. Because all of the Priya Sakhas of Radhika are Nitya Siddhas. So there's no avenue of doing that because we're coming from the position of being Bada Jiva. So by sadhana, the only available seva in Madhurya Rasa is either Palyadasi Bhav to Radhika, or if there's some Priyanama Sakya Rasa, they also have some assistance in the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. But to witness the Nikunja Leela of Radha Krishna is only Palyadasi Bhav. So he's asking, may I do anugatya to those Sakis? May I become the servant of those Sakis? You understand? I don't want to be one. You understand? So the actual practice is giving information about the specific relationship that was given at the time of Diksha. So this is how we understand what it is that our aspirational goal is. Because you enter law school doesn't make you a lawyer. You enter medical school doesn't make you a doctor. The reality of going through the courses, doing an internship, and all the things required before you're given the stamp of approval, yes, you are a doctor, yes, you are a lawyer, that is similarly applicable in the practice of bhakti. Going through the stages of bhakti, at the stage of bhav, the degree of swarup siddhi is conferred upon you. Sudha sattva viseshatma prem suyangsa samyabha ruchi vis chittamasanya kritasovavachite. At that time, the ruchi you had, the aspirational desire you had, is synthesized or becomes taratmik with swarup shakti. Ladini, Sandini, and Sambhit shaktis. And once they become taratmik, then you have a realization of your actual identity composed of 11 elements. Nam, Rup, Vyas, Vesh, etc. These are 11 elements of a Swarup. You understand? So we don't have to have obtained perfection to understand where we're going in our perfection. Those are two different things. What path I'm on going to my perfection doesn't mean I have to have the perfection. That doesn't make sense. I have to have an understanding of what I'm practicing to get a perfection. You understand? So I have to identify the goal that's called the sadhya. Then I can do the sadhana to obtain that. I have to determine I want to be a lawyer to do all the prerequisite work and then enter into law school. Similarly, I have to have some idea, this is what I want. Before I take up getting up 4:30 in the morning or 3:30 in the morning, going to Mangalarati, doing the Guru Puja, doing Tulsi Puja, worshipping the deity, cooking for Thakur, I have to have some idea what outcome I want to come from this. If you don't have a defined outcome, the dominance of salvationism will come in your heart. I simply want to get out of the material world, get free from suffering. So this will become mokshavad. That's why Srila Prabhupada identified in the verse I quoted yesterday, without studying the books of the Acharyas to get the proper internal alignment, you become like an impersonalist. Srila Prabhupada mentioned that in his purport. Why? Because the dominant theme becomes, I'll enjoy the mode of material goodness for right now, and then at the end, because I practice bhakti, I'll get free from the suffering of the material world. That's mokshavad. It is not the avenue by which you obtain pure love in a particular mood, in a particular rasa for Krishna. You understand? So I wanted to explain some of these things as a follow-up to the question that was asked about sambhanda gyan by one of the devotees in the group who the original tape was intended for. So hopefully this makes it a little clearer. So to break it down again, our sambhanda gyan begins when we receive Harinam even, and you receive a name of Krishna and the suffix dasa dasi. So this establishes the constitutional reality that I'm not this material body, I'm not this particular karmic identification I have, John Doe born to Sally Doe and Bob Doe, but actually I'm the Das of Krishna, as Mukunda Das, Sham Das, so-and-so Dasi. I'm actually the Das of, that's my real identity, that's my constitutional reality. I am the Das of Krishna with a desire, based upon the previous impressions in Bhakti, with the desire to obtain the service of Krishna in Sakya Rasa, Vatsalya Rasa, and in Madhurya Rasa Palya Dasi Bhav. So I'm following a sadhana in pursuit of that goal. As we have some maturation of understanding, we can then understand on this path of serving Vrindavan and Shri Krishna, and Rag Marg, or the path of Raganuga Bhakti, is the only path of service to Radha Krishna. I explained that. Right? Sakale Jagate More Vairi Bhakti Vrajabhav Paiti Noi Shakti. You could not obtain it by Vairi Bhakti. This does not mean, again, I've already explained this, that there are no vidis or observations of rules and regulations in the practice of Raganuga Bhakti. Shravanam Kirtanandani, Vairi Bhakti Sudanti too. Even in the practice of Rag Marg, we observe vidis. Do we not get up in the morning? Do we not bath? Do we not chant our Anik or our Diksha mantras at certain times of the day? These are following rules and regulations also. But the aspirational goal is very specific to the service of Vrindavan and Shri Krishna. And particularly, the service of Radhika in pursuit of serving Krishna. You understand? So, without this dasitva, without establishing ourselves firmly in being das of Krishna, we cannot develop a further conception of a visesh or a specific mood of service to Krishna. You have to first be established, I'm the das of Krishna. That'll be shown by doing what is favorable to being the das of Krishna and avoiding what's unfavorable. That's proof of saranagati. Then Rakshashati Vishwas Gopta Vevarnam Tata. Then Mahaprabhu, Radha Krishna, they will protect and nourish your bhakti to allow your heart to become illumined with the specifications that were given in the Diksha mantras by Guru of your particular mode of service. And then you'll see it. You'll see it manifest in the practice. You'll observe it. Oh, this is what I'm doing. And this is why Rupa Goswami warned, I told yesterday, Achahaya Prayasascha Prajalpa Niyama Agraha. Don't do this ritualistic practice, void of any understanding of what it is I'm doing. I'm just ritually going to Mangalarti, singing these songs. I don't really know exactly what they mean. I have a general idea, but I'm not sure how they relate to me. Is my Guru Nikunjasun, you know Ratikali Siddhaya? I don't know. So it can't be like that. You have to have an understanding and some resonance with the practice, because it's defining your objective or goal. And remember, you didn't get here accidentally. That's another big problem. People thinking, well, somehow or another, I joined the Hare Krishna movement. You didn't. You had an awakening from previous life samskars that told you, oh, this is interesting, I should check it out. Just think about the verse Krishna says, in everyone's heart, I'm giving knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So who's inspired? Oh, I should take a look at this Hare Krishna movement. Understand? For many devotees, if you go back and look into history, by their cultural affiliations in the material world, they would have never taken an interest in some people running around with tilak and bed sheets and all these kind of things. You understand? But the internal push came from previous samskars in bhakti to investigate it, and then as soon as they began investigating, the resonance of those previous samskars started to manifest. You understand? It wasn't from a material cultural attraction necessarily. It was from the inner previous experiences in bhakti that awakened at a particular time. It may have been young in life or as you got older in life, right? But it awakened at some point, and that's what guided a person into the path of bhakti. So these things are very important, and if you're not clear on them, and you don't either have access to your Diksha Guru or whatever the case might be, definitely pick up association of a Siksha Guru who is affectionate to you and who has some mood to want to help you like this, and don't see it to be contradictory to your Diksha Guru, Dave. You understand? But it should be complementary, not contradictory, but complementary to your Diksha Guru, that they're taking the time to illumine your heart in Siksha of the things you receive at the time of Diksha. Right? All right, so hopefully this was somewhat helpful, Prabhuji, for you and your good wife. I don't forget your wife. I know both of you are writing with the question. And between the video from the other day and this, hopefully it gives some clarity to your particular question, that we will not have to wait until we're already in the stage of perfection to understand who we are. That begins with an aspirational desire for that particular goal. And then we're practicing with that. It's called the seva abhista. And in the scriptures it mentions antas chintan seva abhista tat upayogi dehinam, that we should meditate internally while we're practicing on that desired goal, much in the same way that any young gentleman who aspires to be in a professional sports league, they daydream about it all day. They see themselves in that role. They imagine themselves wearing the number of their favorite player. You understand? So pretty much in the same way, we should contemplate our seva abhista. This is my desired goal. How do we get a taste for a desired goal? By hearing harikatha of those who have some realization of their goal. If you hear from those who have a generic understanding, what dominantly comes across in their harikatha is mokshavad, salvationism. Because they don't have a particular way to transmit the inner mood of their own heart, and that then touches your heart and resonates. Oh, I'm awakening to a taste in this, hearing the glory and beauty of this thing from this person who has some realization about it. You understand? So, a person who is very good in the practice of bhakti, in the sense of following everything very nicely, doing everything very nicely, and even for a very long period of time, but they don't have a clear understanding of sambhanda gyan, their harikatha can only give insight into freedom from the material world. Because there's not a basis under which they can express the sweetness of a particular mood if they have no realization and no aspiration for that mood. So I was explaining the other day, if you read even the Ras Leela, Ras Panchadhyaya in Srimad Bhagavatam, if you read the Ras Leela Katha and you read it from a generic disposition, right, or a neutral disposition, I'm a devotee, I'm the das of Krishna, but there's no particular sambandha gyan, you'll never breach the inner mood of the rasa samagri, means the ingredients of rasa, which are present in those descriptions, because there's nowhere for you to relate them to. I don't have a particular desire to serve like that, so how does that resonate with me? You understand? So only when you have that desire, I want to be the Palyadasi of Radhika, then you can understand how Krishna's interactions with Radhika are very sweet, because you have a relationship of aspiration to serve Srimati Radhika in her Milan or her meeting with Krishna. Similarly, you can understand the heartbreak of separation, because you know that at the time of being separated, the pain that your Swamini, Srimati Radhika, goes through, and you want to serve her at that time. So now it has a resonance. It makes sense to me personally in my path of bhakti. But from the generic disposition, well, I may be a tree in Vrindavan or this or that, from that position, if you say something is very beautiful or very sweet, from what angle of vision or what perspective are you saying it's very sweet? It's poetic. The language is very sweet. The ideal is very sweet. And in many cases, that sensibility of it being very charming or sweet will be born from the material mode of goodness. Because you don't have a entry point into the actuality, right, of what that is. You don't have, you're not, who are you? Right? Just like a good example. Even Krishna himself tried to enter the Ras Leela, right? In the form of Gopeshwar Mahadev. You understand? So that's a lesson that one has to do service to the gopis in a particular mood of aspiration for that seva in order to get the realizations of what happens in Ras Leela. So of course Gopeshwar Mahadev, who is the original Sarashiv, an expansion of Krishna, he sits at the door of the Ras Mandal to protect it from people coming in who have not yet established Gopi Vina Anugatya, who have no Anugatya to gopis. You cannot enter that transcendental space. Understand? All right. I have other services to do. I'm getting carried away here. All right. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhavevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. If any devotees have questions, even devotees who are on listening to it, and I see many devotees are on, Nasikananda Prabhu, Dainya, Alalita Saki, I can't see now, my thing is scrolled up, but Sadhana said I know was on earlier. So if there's any questions on these things, you can always write me in Facebook Messenger because it's the easiest way for me to reply. I'm not always going to do videos on these things because one, I've done videos on these things in the past. The videos on Facebook now only stay up 30 days, only by the grace of Tirtha Prabhu in the UK. He's always been so kind to me that he normally uploads them all to my YouTube channel. So there we can have them in perpetuity, of course. But I've stopped really doing a lot of them on Facebook because now they have this 30-day rule. So, it doesn't really, it's not as advantageous as it was previously. All right, Dandavat Pranam. Jai Radhe Radhe.